Hi everyone, welcome back to BISP Solutions. This is Farha Alam, and in this tutorial series we are learning about the fast formula in Oracle Fusion HCM Cloud. And in our previous session we had seen the introduction for the fast formula. So in this session we are going to see the components for the fast formula. So uh, we are going to discuss about the components for the fast formula. So what will happen when we are developing a fast formula? We must understand the formula language, the rules, and that the applications imposes on the fast formula and the calculation requirements. So whatever calculation requirements are there, or we have in we have to write in our fast formula, we have to understand all these requirements, all the rules that are applicable for the fast formula. We have to understand basically under the component parts for the fast formula. So what components we have in our fast formula? So here is the list of the available components for the fast formula. So first we have the assignment statements, we have return statements, variable, input statements, expressions, conditions, comments. These are basically all these are the components of fast formula. So we are going to elaborate each and every component individually. So firstly I will explain the assignment statement. So what will happen in this assignment statement? uh, this assignment statement component is basically used, as the name itself self-explanatory, that this statement is used to assign the value to the formula. So an assignment statement basically assign a value to the element. This is basically the use of this component. We have to use this component in order to assign the value to the element. So let me give you the example for this one. Here I have written one example. So if we talk about the assignment statement component, right? So here we have one element, that is wage, and it wage equal to hours worked multiplied by our hourly rate. So this is basically the example for the assignment statement component. So whatever calculation performed between hours worked and hourly rate, the result for this one is going to store under the wage element. So this is basically the assignment statement component. Next, we have return statement. So what does this return statement component do in our fast formula? So a return statement basically passes the value back to the payroll run. So we can use this return statement to stop the formula execution without passing any values as well. So whatever value we are going to return in our fast formula, we can return it with the help of this return statement component. It will I will show you the example so that it will give you the clear understanding for this return statement. So here, let's suppose we have a formula which is going to calculate the wage for an employee, and how it will calculate? It will going to calculate the number of hours performed by the employee and hourly rate. We have to pass the number of hours worked he or she performed, and we have to multiply that number of particular works with the hourly rate, and this value is going to store under the wage element, and here we are going to return the wage value. So whatever result we get for these two values is going to store under this wage element, and we are going to return this wage element. So this is basically the use of this return statement component. Next we have variables. So variables. So variable means variable is like a placeholder which is going to store certain values for for some statements. Uh, Let me show you one example so that it will give you clear understanding for the variables. Here, here is the example. Here, wage equal to hours worked multiplied by hourly rate. So this wage is basically a variable which is going to store the value for this one. Whatever result we get for this is going to store under this variable. So variable is nothing but it's like a placeholder which is going to store the value for the input statements. So whatever input statements we are going to pass, it will going to store the result for that input statement under this particular variable wage. So this is basically the use of the input statement component. Next we have expressions. Next we have input statements. So input statements are basically used to input statement component is basically used to define or declare the input variables we are going to use in our first formula. So if I talk about this example, another example I have written it over here for the input statements. So here we have just to use wage equal to hours worked multiplied by hourly rate, and we are returning the wage variable. Now if we talk about the input statement component, so here we have defined the hours worked as our input. So we have to what what are we going to do over here? We have to pass the hours worked value over here. So when we execute this fast formula, so it will, we have to pass the number of work, the number of hours worked performed by an employee. We have to pass like 40, 50. Basically the standard working hours is 40 per week. So if we pass 40 for this input statement component, so it will going to pass it over here hours worked and hourly rate. Let's suppose hourly rate is 50 or 60, whatever hourly rate we have, it will going to multiply by 40 and the result is going to store under the wage variable, and we are returning our wage variable. So basically this is the use of the input statement. So we have to, it will, when we execute this particular formula, it will going to ask for the hours worked. So we have to pass the value for this hours worked, then it will going to calculate with hourly rate and the result is going to store under the wage, and it will return the wage variable. So this is basically the use of the input statement component. Next we have expression. Expression is nothing but whatever operation we want to perform, like over here. Here is an example. Wage equal to hours worked multiplied by hourly rate. This is what? This is basically the expression we are going to use. Whatever calculation done between hours worked or hourly rate. This is basically the use example of expression statement component. Next we have conditions. So we can in fast formula it is but obvious that we are going to perform certain calculations or operations, so we have to pass certain conditions also. So this is basically the condition statement condition component. So We can use condition to process the expression based on whether a certain condition occurs or not. So in order to check certain condition, whether it is true or not, whether it is true or false, we just have to use the conditions. So here is the example for the condition component. Here it is. Here I have written another fast formula for the condition component. So what it will going to do, if this is basically the condition we are going to perform over here. If years service is greater than 10, then what will happen? Annual leave equal to 20. If any employees is have if any employees is having the years of service is greater than equal to 10, then how many annual leave uh, he'll going to entertain by is 25. Else annual leave equal to 20, and we are going to return the annual leaves, whatever we are, it will going to return this annual leave to us. So this is basically the condition component, or the use of condition component in our fast formula. Next we have comments. So this comment section is basically used to explain all or part of fast formula. We can change some formula lines into comments until they are ready to be used. So comments are basically designated by the comment determines, like how can we if we want to define uh, the formula name, its description, its type, developed by, date of for the formula, when it is created. So all these things we can define under the comments statement. So uh, how can we define the comment statement? So here, if I talk about the comment component, so here is my comment. This is basically the comment. Put a forward slash asterisk, and whatever comment you want to pass, you can write it over here, and then you have to close it with the asterisk and the slash. So basically this comment is will not going to execute by the compiler. The compiler will execute this part, and the comment will not going to be executed by the compiler. It is basically used to give a basic idea about the formula, what what the name of the formula is, what does it do, description of the formula, type of the formula, developed by whom, on which particular date or day this formula has been created. So this is basically the comment component, and this is basically about the components in the fast formula. So basically the components are used to uh, define the structure, like what kind or things we are going to use in our fast formula. So we have to use the assignment statements, we have to use the return statements, variables we have to use because it is going to store the values for some calculations or operations. Input statements, what input statements we have to pass for certain formulas. Expressions, what kind of expressions we are going to use in our fast formula, either multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, whatever expression we can use it under our fast formula. Conditions, what conditions we want to use. We have if statement, if else statement, We have nested if statements. Depending on our requirement, we can go with it. Comments component. So these are basically the components for the fast formula and all about this session. If you have any question regarding this session, you can reach out to us at www.bispsolutions.com or www.bisptrainings.com. Thank you, everyone.